Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me today, three good generals. We have General Ravi Shankar, General Raj Shukla, and General Harimohan Iyer. Namaskar, gentlemen. How are you? Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year. Yeah, thanks a lot. A happy New Year to all of you and to all the audience joined us on the other side today.
General Shankar, let's start with you, sir. Your take on what's happening, because Venezuela had invested in a big way into a lot of arms, and we don't know the mix that is there, Russian as well as Chinese, and perhaps others too. And yet, this was a fairly slick operation. In 30 minutes, they swooped in, took the president out from there. Operation itself, I'm not talking about the morality of it. Just what really happened in your opinion, sir? And then I would ask the same question of General Raj Shukla and General Harimohan Iyer also. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot. At the outset, the operation by the I thought was outstanding, well planned, meticulous, and they, did tremendous speed and precision. And they had put all the elements, and they had what to do. They had surprised. They showed as if they're going to do an invasion, and then went in and picked up this chap over, within a wisdom of in a couple of hours, and the operation was done, and it has changed the whole thing. Well, you know, uh, the Venezuelans, they had invested heavily into Russian and Chinese arms. Now that's out in the open. Uh, and like all Latin American countries, none of these Latin American countries have really armed forces worth to mention. Right? They might have equipment, but along with the equipment comes training. When you get equipment from China, unless you train with that equipment, unless you master that equipment and then induct that equipment properly with a, uh, it will not serve you. And that's what has happened with all these countries. All these countries. It's just not Venezuela. That's what has happened with Pakistan. That's a surprise, right? That is what happened in Thailand, Cambodia, and many more. I can keep talking of it. It's happened in Nepal, it's happened in Sri Lanka, it's happened in Bangladesh, it's happened in Myanmar, it happened in Nigeria. Everywhere, the weapons from China have failed. And why have they failed? Because these weapons are not good, as simple as that, and they don't train. Uh, you know, let me this thing. I'm sure General Harimohan will bear me out. I'll give one example. I can give more. When we inducted the M777, it was just not getting the M777. There was a proper induction program. People were trained and then deployed, and they did live firing, and they got meshed into our system, and that whole story went on for 2 years. Not simple. Then we had these, ANTPQ-37 weapon locating radars. Now, we inducted them in 2020. Till date, we are in touch with the US people for upgrades, for training, for procuring items for on loan, not loan, for spares and all that. And we've got experience of handling those equipment. Of course, one thing which the Indian Army has tremendous experience to handle any equipment. Okay. Not with these people, they've never fought a war. And China also has not fought a war. You see Chinese equipment wherever. That's it. They've only given money. It's only a money. See, China invested into Venezuela. It was that oil for loans deal. You get oil and we'll give you what you want. After that, there's nothing. And that's the case with everyone. I mean, I I hope Bangladeshis are here on our show and let them look at their own equipment, whether it's tanks or submarines and all that. They don't work. So it's nice to say you have all this equipment and all that. They don't work. Now, the Russians also follow the same principle where it matters or where it suits them. Let me put it this way. Why should anyone, take the trouble of training the other army? They'll not. The next thing is, this is the thing of the modern armed forces. And that came out absolutely during the Ukraine war. Okay. Everyone during the Ukraine war thought that, look, the Russian armed forces, army, was very good, excellent, outstanding. They're well equipped, yeah, all that. What happened? Gone. The Chinese are untested. They can't maneuver. We saw that in the Kailash range. They can't maneuver. Once we got on to the heights, and I'm sure Hari will talk about it, they were sitting ducks after that. They couldn't. So they don't have the depth. It's just not having, all these ships and all. All these ships. Suppose China is supposed to have the biggest navy in the world. Where was it? Their $100 billion hit they have got. And just think, their, team, a special team nominated by Xi Jinping goes to Maduro and says, oh, we'll take care of you and all. Within 4 hours, there's no Maduro. Before those chaps can board a flight, they're out. So, and this is the thing with the difference with the Russian armed forces, the Chinese armed forces, modern. You go back in time, the time when Mao was there, or for that matter, Stalin and all, they didn't hesitate to shed blood. They didn't hesitate to sacrifice. They had steel. You see that movie, which XOB's Bahadur, which General Raj Shukla spoke the other day. More than 3,000 Chinese died to get that post, but they died. You look at it from that point of view, they were prepared to stand and fight. And it doesn't matter how many people died, they wanted to do it. And they had that resolve. They had that capability with whatever they had. But today, that's not so. That's not so. If the Russian armed forces had the capability to fight, and this is what I've been telling all through, and I've been telling all my Russian friends, they won't be in this state. This war should have got finished off long back. So it's not equipment alone which makes an army. It's the training, it's the people, it's the leadership. Just think, Chinese army, PLA, 70% of the generals have been sacked in the past 2 years. This is a figure quoting from Chinese sources. How will they train Venezuelan army? I mean, what I'm trying to trust to you is, this was to happen, right? And we saw it coming. Most of the times when I speak like this, people say, oh, they have the biggest navy. The Americans, can't come anywhere near Taiwan. You think so? You think the Chinese can, take over Taiwan this way? Sorry. So it's not equipment which matters, and many of this equipment are suspect equipment. You looked at air defense. It has failed in Pakistan. It has failed here also. It will fail in China tomorrow. And if I were in Xi Jinping's position, I'll be very worried. Not Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi is very clear. We know how to handle it. Xi Jinping, very worried man today. He's got a set junk equipment with no generals. That's a recipe for disaster. Okay, fine. We'll take this up further. Back to you, Sri Ayarji.
Thank you so much, sir. General Raj Shukla, this has certainly surprised Maduro. Otherwise, he would not be in his palace. Probably he sensed something that US is not going to do anything, despite all the indications to the contrary. In terms of how other countries are looking at this, certainly Cuba is on notice, and so is Colombia. And there's another angle for this that P. Gurus has been looking at in terms of the narco-terrorism angle, for which Maduro is standing trial now. Overall, how do you see this thing? There is also the Hezbollah angle in Venezuela. It may not be there in Cuba, but Cuba got entangled because looks like it was Cuban security that was guarding Maduro, and 30 people have died, at least according to one count. See, untangle this for us a little bit from your perspective, sir. You're muted, sir. You're muted, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
so just
go
to
ahead.
add what Gen Shankar said, I want to make two observations. One is on the geopolitics, and the second is on the military metrics. See, I think we should have taken the Trump national security strategy when he said the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. We should have taken it far more seriously. I think he really means business. He's telling the Chinese and the Russians to get out of the American backyard. There is broader signaling to Cuba and Colombia, which he calls the drug caliphate. And it is all these intersection of, adversarial interests to America, which had gathered in Venezuela. So drugs and the Chinese penetration of the Western Hemisphere by way of BRI, int gathering, so on and so forth. He has given a very clear message that get out. He's also put Cuba on notice and Colombia on notice. Now, whether you agree with it or not is a different matter, but the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine has made a very good beginning. So that is the geopolitics. He's telling them that get out of my backyard, which now tells me that Trump is a very shrewd character. The only thing that matters to him is the American interest. I mean, he may be friendly to Putin one day, but when it is in the American interest, he puts him in his place. And the second thing is what General Shankar pointed out. In this Cold War between the Dragon Bear and USA, this is the third successive defeat of the Dragon Bear. Iran once, their AD systems and all just didn't work. Look what happened in Gaza, not Venezuela. So, and that which brings me to the third point. As a soldier, it was a stunning military operation. It was a fabulous success. So on that soldier to soldier, military to military level, I haven't seen anything of this kind for a very long time. And see, what are the lessons for India? This is, I think, not the first time that the Americans have done it. If you go back, they've attempted similar stuff in Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Colombia, Panama, the Iran rescue hostage crisis, most recently the humiliation in Afghanistan. So when you have power projection, when you have this kind of military, every time it will not succeed. There will be failures. But the Americans have learned from every failure. And for this operation, full marks to the commander-in-chief, just from a military perspective. Full marks to Secretary Hegseth and to Dan Kane. The operation was not easy. I believe it began sometime in August when you had the CIA inserting itself. It got hold of CIA assets, stealth drones, over these months, knowing, where Maduro was moving, what he ate, even what his pet dogs were, which were his favorite haunts, all that stuff. He was being monitored every time. Then they lulled him into some kind of complacency by, the Armada having gathered for very long. Nothing really happened. And Maduro made some kind of peace offering when he said, in an imitation of that MAGA slogan, that no war, yes peace. And he was frankly caught unawares. And then you have this military operation building on this CIA assets and stealth drones. You have the air package of 150 aircraft, all kinds of aircraft from B-2s to F-22s to F-18s, E-2s, remotely piloted drones. And I watched the briefing of Dan Kane. He said it is an integrated operation of maritime forces, land forces, space. I keep making this point. He mentioned the Guardians many times, space as a war-fighting component. So not only interagency, CIA, DEA, and the Delta Force and the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, which enabled the helicopter assault, but also this marvelous integration amongst these services. This should once again drive home to us the importance of integrated theater commands. If we really want to execute operations of this kind, you can't go along with this gaggle of coordinated jointness and all that. It's a pack of nonsense. Even now, it is not too late to learn this. See what went right with this. It was clockwork. Absolutely. All that one. And it was not that, they were not, it was contested. They were self-defense missions. These guys did fire, though they may have broken into the Venezuelan military. But there were some responses. A helicopter was shot at, some 6 to 8 people have got injured. But they pulled it off very well in terms of intelligence, the insertion of the Delta Force through the 160 Special Operations Aviation Regiment and all that. And they also build a good story. So I'm told that the JSOC, which is the Joint Special Operations Command, served as a means of, placing the arrest warrant on Maduro based on a DOJ indictment. So the legal story is also intact. And you had people from the DOJ who were carried in on these helicopters, and they put him under arrest and then extracted him. Now, even extraction is not easy under fire, but they successfully extracted him to the Iwo Jima, the warship, then to Guantanamo Bay, and onward to New York. Now imagine 15,000 troops, and we know 50 troops means 100 things can go wrong. And here were 50,000 troops. Nothing went wrong, clockwork precision, military to military. As a soldier, I must really applaud what the Americans did. And they've had some horrible fiascos we saw in Afghanistan and all. So the last point that I want to make is that, as General Shankar was saying, that militaries are not just machines. All these issues of, the forces, how you respect them professionally, the training. And I'm told they rehearsed this operation 50 times. All this has to be, the need for a professional military must be respected. And it cannot, this respect must not be built on jingoism or other considerations. It just has to be professional, because a professional military can do this for your power and purpose. And I think, in that sense, it has been an extraordinary operation. Look at how the AD systems were disabled, dismantled. And the last point that I would like to make is, what are the lessons in the Indian context? I'll just take 60 seconds. India also, the Lowy Institute says we are the third most powerful country as per the Asian Power Index. What is our attitude to our periphery? Do we have the means to stabilize the periphery in this fashion? We should stop applauding the Americans now. Can we execute such operations? If there is a political direction, can we get the DGISI similarly? That should be our test. If a minority is, persecuted in Bangladesh and the political leadership feels the need, can we intervene in this fashion? This will be the test of the Indian military, and it's not going to be easy. So unless we take all those measures, those hard lessons of integration, theater command, koi aisi kahani nahi hai. It has got real life consequences. The way, drones, space, all this stuff has been integrated, has to be done. And one other point I would like to make is, look at how this air defense is suddenly getting important. This Ukrainian strike on Valdai, or if not Valdai, something around it, all the S-400s, S-500s were useless because the drone swarms can overwhelm them. So it is getting so complicated. You need layered capacities in air defense, different for ballistic, different for cruise, different for hypersonics, different for swarms. And we are getting multiple warnings from Sindoor. We must do this. And the other last part of the Sudarshan Chakra has to be a long-range precision strike system. And I choose my words with great care and responsibility. We should have not only regional but global reach, because you never know whom your adversary will be tomorrow. And not, as an offensive measure, but to deter any adversary, current or prospectively. Unless you can hit him in the mainland, you are vulnerable to these kind of strikes. So I'm making a comprehensive case of a professional military, air defense, long-range precision strike, and all this kind of stuff. So that is I think the lesson from Operation Absolute Resolve and full marks. A year back, I thought Trump was a maverick. I don't know. I'm now beginning to respect him. Somehow he has great clarity, at least in the American interest, of what to do. And that national security strategy, I mean, each word is turning out to be true. He means there will be a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Get out of my backyard. You can't do this kind of stuff. From the American point of view, I appreciate what's happening. These drug syndicates. Look at oil. I'm told that for 1989, oil would come from Venezuela to American refineries where it would be refined. There were oil companies, there were jobs. All that was now started going to China. So he's telling them, get your oil from other places, not from our backyard. And the larger sense is, this Cold War 2.0 is hotting up. And at this point, I see the USA losing. China may have all those fancy technologies, but they don't have the military to execute this kind of stuff.
Thank you so much, sir. General Harimohan Iyer, you are mute. You also muted. Kindly unmute yourself and then please express your thoughts.
Firstly, I'll start with a very simplified.
Something wrong. You can't hear you.
Hello.
Can't hear you.
No, I can hear you, sir. He's fine. He's fine. He's fine, sir.
Yeah. So when General Shankar was mentioning, China ka mal, I always felt you need to have the man behind the machine to make the machine work. If I get the best cricket equipment and give it to my son, he cannot become Sachin Tendulkar. So you got to have the man capable enough to use that equipment. That is the first point we must understand. Venezuela doesn't have an army to speak of. It must be having tons and tons of money because of its oil and other resources. It can buy equipment, but it can't buy an army. The army has to be created from its own populace. And that is where I find all these nations which are, finding difficulty in holding on to their integrities, falling short. So one point was that. As far as Chinese equipment is concerned, you saw that there was a rocket launcher which went off, in Cambodia, just blasted off. And I've been saying this for quite some time. China, suddenly came out as a huge equipment manufacturer because they picked up and they were able to reverse engineer a large amount of technologies which they took from Russia and other ends. So you found a Chinese equivalent of S-300, you found the Chinese equivalent of the Sukhois, the MiGs. Everything they were able to reproduce a Chinese equivalent. And whenever we've seen these Chinese equivalent in action, they have fallen short. So the good thing as far as India is concerned is today on both fronts, the majority of equipment which faces us is Chinese. And we should take huge amount of this thing from it that this equipment is not going to work in war, whether it is in the northern front or on the western front. The third thing is, what kind of equipment does China export? I believe they have a separate export variety for each of their equipment, which need not be of the same capability as the one that they prophesize as their own main equipment. So the long-range air-to-air missile which they gave to Pakistan, some of them were of the original Chinese inventory and some were export variants. And their performance was shown the way they performed in Op Sindoor. So whatever equipment was available with Venezuela, by and large, it may not have met the kind of capability which China actually prophesies. Then when you buy equipment from an adversarial superpower, you must be prepared that the person you are confronting with has possibly worked out all countermeasures for this kind of equipment. So when today you look at the US and China being the two poles in the future, I'm sure the United States would have worked out suitable countermeasures for the current inventory of Chinese equipment. So by putting all this equipment in Venezuela, by and large, these would have failed or they were destined to fail the way they were operating. As far as the special forces are concerned, I agree with General Shukla. The US Special Forces are possibly one of the best, and it's not that it started now. So you had the evacuation of Noriega way back in 1989 from Guatemala. And that was actually becoming an issue in large number of Hollywood movies. Similar incidents have been shown. Similarly, the DOJ went, extracted him out with the help of special forces. You saw the way Osama bin Laden was taken out inside a nuclear power state. You saw the way Baghdadi was taken out inside Iraq and Syria. So the special forces, when they operate, they have the capability, and it is time we give it to them. Whether the remainder of the armed forces is as capable, I have my doubts. I have my doubts because I always have doubts on armies which are draft-based armies, because they don't have continuity in their manpower. So the training which these people have on the equipment will be not as adept as an army which is of a 100% full-fledged army, like ours. I don't think the American army is battle-hardened also. They may be able to execute operations like this, but I don't think they are that kind of a superpower when it comes to conventional operations, and they will be found wanting there. Chinese. We have talked so much about Chinese Navy, China's equipment, China's growing capability. They just started operating aircraft carrier about 5 years back. I don't think they have the capability to even put it out. The aircraft carrier can be taken out at any time. So let's not get worried about so much about Chinese equipment. The big thing which comes out loud and clear, and it has been being flagged since Op Sindoor, then the operations in Gaza, the operations in Ukraine, is the issue of stealth. There's a argument which is going around in India as to whether we need to go in for a stealth aircraft. And I guess we were having a discussion on this very forum a month ago, wherein we said that stealth aircraft only comes in when there is a close contact battle. But for operations of this nature, stealth is a very important element. And that has been demonstrated in this current scheme of things. The F-22s, the F-35s, their helicopters, the stealth drones which they have used, all of them have a lesson for us. It's high time Indian armed forces start looking at stealth and stop looking at technologies which are, dated ones. As it stands, our current breed of aircrafts, we need a very huge upgrade that needs to be taken on, and stealth is one of those upgrades. I believe I heard the air chief yesterday on one of the networks that he's trying to pull forward the AMCA program. But that is something, I guess, either we are able to find a home blade solution or we buy these aircraft. There's no other solution to it. In a confrontation of nature of this type with an armed force which has got those kind of equipment, you can't go without stealth. That is something which is very much required. The second thing is what we call as ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. General Shukla mentioned it has to be a integrated approach where the int agencies which are working on ground, the satellites which are working from the space, the aircraft which are operating in the air, and other agencies which are working in other countries are able to give you the specific information which can be put together as a consolidated solution. That is something which is still in the works as far as we are concerned. We keep talking about it, but when it comes to putting it into picture, we fall short. I feel that we should learn this as a major lesson from this current operation and start looking at an integrated intelligence picture. And even if the integrated theater commands are not happening, at least it's high time. And General Shukla keeps mentioning DIA, so I will take this cue today. I feel it's high time the DIA gets into action and is given the mandate to integrate the entire intelligence. It may be in the civilian domain today, but it is high time that is brought into a central domain, and DIA is possibly the best agency as I look at it. The geopolitics, I want to add a couple of issues to what General Shukla has already flagged. Yes, the triangle of Colombia, Venezuela, and Cuba is what US is targeting. It has already taken care of Venezuela. I don't know whether it is actually taken care of, because the reports indicate that they may not have got total control on Venezuela as yet. But it's for us to see how things move from here. I am a little skeptical whether he will step on the minefield of Cuba, because he has past injuries to remember. So to that extent, he will go very steady as far as Cuba is concerned. Colombia definitely, because Colombia is the place where the drug actually flows into the US. So I look at something happening to Colombia very soon. I even heard some talks about Argentina and Chile. So look at it. The entire South American hemisphere is taken on by Trump as his current agenda. And there was one map which was circulating in the social media, and I was very intrigued with it, where they had demarcated areas which Trump wants to dominate, which takes Western Europe, part of Western Africa, the entire South America, and of course the North America, including Greenland, which I believe is the next target for Trump. And he believes that the rest of it will be left for China and Russia to take care of. So if that be the ones, then the next issue next contest to look for is what happens in Taiwan. Will this incident hasten up the Chinese attempt at clearing Taiwan is something we should look at. Hezbollah is, in my mind, a kind of a diversion which the US intelligence is putting into this current sphere. I listened to your program yesterday, and a lot of talk about Hezbollah nexus inside Venezuela, but then I believe it has been created to create some kind of a legal remedy for this kind of an operation. They will play narco-terrorism as a single point game, but we all know the issue was not narco-terrorism, the issue was oil interest. And like General Shukla said, the entire southern refineries of, around Texas and Minnesota and all the southern states where Trump has his entire support from, that was getting dried up because Venezuela was not selling oil to US. To make those states and get jobs back into US, this is possibly the main reason for US to step into Venezuela. So in geopolitical terms, I don't think Hezbollah will stand to logic, though he will try and bring that as an excuse to take on Iran in his next line. As far as India is concerned, I must mark it here that we have a very potent special forces setup. And having seen it operating from very close distance when I was in Northern Command, I can assure all your viewers that we have a very, very efficient and a capable set of units which are capable of taking extremely difficult operations. And surgical strike was one very small incident of what our special forces can do. And with the new development of these Bhairav battalions or the light commando battalions also coming up indicates that India is looking at special forces in a very big way. And I think that indicates that we are thinking in the right directions, because the future conflicts are unlikely to be very long drawn conflicts. We have to ensure that we are able to have that kind of force which is able to achieve our interests within the small time frame that the world body will allow us in the conflicts. I will stop here, and I guess we can discuss it as the discussion goes forward.
Thank you so much, sir. General Ravi Shankar, given that US has shown what it can do in Venezuela, let's take India's immediate neighbors, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China. How do these equations change? Will India be able to I'm just asking probably the other way. What are these countries thinking now, especially Pakistan? Because this is the bluster land. A lot of talk, hot air. What exactly are they thinking, in your opinion, sir?
Yeah, I'll get to that a little later. We'll get back to Venezuela, Cuba, USA, Colombia, because the answer to this is in understanding that. Why I'm saying so. In any operation of this variety, where you have to do insertion, extraction, extraction, or destruction, the surgical strikes, this kind of a thing. One thing which is absolutely required is politico-military fusion, which we don't talk of. Even General Raj Shukla in this book, he's spoken of politico-military fusion to develop capabilities. That is not the thing. Politico-military fusion is to what you want to do with this instrument of force. And for that, you need to understand the politics of the story. And I'll highlight it. You see, I have to go back into Venezuela, its history, to make this point very clear. You see, at the turn of the century, Venezuela was a pretty rich country. It had a lot of money, but the people were in a bad shape. And Hugo Chavez came with a promise, great promise, Bolivarian republic. Who are the Bolivarian republics? You go back to Simon Bolivar of the last century. You're talking of all those Latin American countries. I'll not list them out, right? And Hugo Chavez came in with a lot of promise, out and out communist. Initially, the Americans wined him and dined him, and we're hoping that they will, do what they have to do. It didn't happen, but something else happened. If you go to the turn of the century, you look at Fidel Castro was still alive. He was the bastion of communism in Cuba, and Cuba was about to fall at that time. Right, he had become old, all that. After all, ultimately died in 2016 or 18. I don't remember off the cuff. But Hugo Chavez bankrolled Cuba and pulled Cuba out of their economic mess. Cuba, in turn, gave manpower to Venezuela. Doctors, guards, army, yevo. That's why you see the huge Cuban presence here. Right. Now, this whole story which is being done by Trump and Colombia somewhere in between. Colombia is also not a great this thing. Right. Colombia was also getting the lajis from Venezuela. Venezuela was the bankroller of all this. And of course, Hugo Chavez didn't do anything for his country. I mean, for his people. He just busted the money. And in came the Chinese. He did a deal with the Chinese. Money kept coming. And he kept supporting Cuba. He kept supporting Colombia. He kept supporting others. Ecuador, all that. All, communist countries. Now, here is this communist country. Then Maduro came, and which has been toppled. Immediately, Cuba is under threat. Because economically, Cuba will become Iran. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen maybe 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line. So, the approach to Cuba is through Venezuela. The approach to Colombia is through Venezuela. The country with the maximum economic potential has been taken out. Understand this. Second aspect, very important, which many people have probably missed out also. You see, everyone says that, the Venezuelan heavy crude is needed by refineries in USA and all that. I agree. But USA is already importing heavy crude from wherever it has to. And those, what shall I say, contracts are on for the next 5 years. They don't need heavy crude immediately. This crude can't be taken out because the wells are in a bad shape. Incidentally, we have 2 wells there, which we are not being allowed to use. So the way I look at it, whatever USA has done, damn good. Hopefully our wells will start functioning and we get oil out of there because we have refineries which handle heavy crude, OVL and ONGC. So the point I am trying to get is, USA doesn't need heavy crude the way everyone is making it out. USA needs control of heavy crude because you're talking of the maximum amount of crude in the world here and it's underground. Okay, you control that. You control your own light crude and the WTI, that's a Texas intermediary, which comes like it's a light crude, and the fracking crude, which is a smoothie, right? You are controlling the global energy story. Now, China, look at China. See this why I'm saying all this is, it might be a little long-winded, but this is the crux of the story. The importance of this little thing comes from that. China uses this crude, Russian crude, and Iran crude at discount and continues. They got teapot, they call in Shandong, they got teapot refineries, if you go into details. All that is gone now. They have to renegotiate. You'll see the hit which China is going to get on just this loss of crude. He'll say, yeah, you renegotiate. What is he told? He said, okay, I'll give you crude, but part of that is renegotiating. And you connected with what's happening in Iran. Iran is on the verge of hyperinflation. If that happens, that fellow is gone. In which case, the dark shipping which goes from Iran is also gone, which means who gets hit? China. If China gets hit and China can't support Russia, Russia will have to deal with Ukraine. There are domino effects of all this. That's why I said politico-military fusion is something which we have to learn. And that politico-military fusion will come only if you have an integrated joint command. Integrated theater commands. So you see all these connections. I mean, already I'm sure the military is ready to get into Greenland for whatever it's worth. People say, oh, they don't have shipbuilding capability, yeah, all that propaganda. अब क्या करेगा China उतना capability लेके? He can't get out of that place. Okay. Now you also see the political messaging which is going to China. He's given $10 billion worth of equipment to Taiwan. Everyone says, oh, he can do Taiwan. This will unleash a thing that China can go into Taiwan. You think so? Hey, have a rethink. For the past, from 22 to now, Taiwan has been tracking every flight of China. It knows. If you think that Taiwan is like Venezuela, forget it. It is battle hardened to defend itself. Okay, and in this case, it was an insertion, pick that guy up and out. Complicated operation, but it is a short operation against a weak enemy. That's why I said the politico-military messaging and the thing is very important in the armies. You don't have that political thing, military, fusion. To borrow what Gen Raj Shukla always keeps talking of, you're out. You can keep developing capability for economy, all that is nice. And mind you, I've written about this. Everyone thought I was a fool, but that's okay. That's part of the story. So you look at Taiwan. With that thing, can China think of doing the same thing with Taiwan? One helicopter of China goes, end of story for China. As it is, people are saying, yeah, when your special emissary was with Maduro, before that fellow could take off, his aircraft could take off, that fellow was already gone. I mean, they went off in two different aircraft on either side. You see the political messaging. Okay. So I think we need to look at our capability building in a political way. What are the targets you're going to do? Will your targets be like what America is doing? No. You have to do something else because your system and your entire thing is completely different. Do you have the capability to do so? Yes. We've done it. We've done it in Maldives. Ask anyone how we did Maldives. Something. Have we done these insertion ops and all that ground-based insertion ops? We've done it. And we've done it across the LAC. We've had tremendous practice in CI ops. Right? And we have done. It's not as if we don't know how to do all these. Yes, we have been reactive in what we have been doing. Have we been proactive in what we are doing? That's the question. Have we been have you got the political clarity between the armed forces and the political hierarchy? This is what you have to train for. And this is accordingly, once that political clarity comes, has the political hierarchy said, you go for it, then build capability. And then the other parts of civil military fusion can happen. I think what we lack is the politico-military fusion. You don't have to be reactive. Oh, that fellow's coming to Eastern Ladakh, then you start doing something. Oh, kuch karo yaar. You know that guy is going to come. He's come. Within 24 hours, you go and sit somewhere else. For that, you need politico-military fusion and build capabilities for that. I mean, I remember 2020, we kept talking of pro-quid co-options till we did this. We did a fantastic job. That's not the point. I'm not decrying that. I mean, no. But in time and space, can you do things differently? You can, provided you have the politico-military fusion. If you have the politico-military fusion, let me tell you this. You don't need that great equipment. The best equipment which will function in war is that which will win you the war. And whatever equipment you have, if you are innovative enough, you can fool the enemy. That's how it is. Warfare is completely different when you come down to Mother Earth and shells are flying all around you, bullets are going all around you. It's a completely different ball game. Do we have that in our capability or not? Okay, go back to the Americans. See what they did today in Venezuela. Go back and see what they did with Obama. The way they tracked. You see that movie Zero Dark 30. Okay, I mean it's so well put out. They built the intelligence. They built the intelligence over a period of time and did what they had to do. I have no problem. People talk of this unknown gunmen and all. Damn good if that's what you're doing. If that is a politico-military fusion, so it doesn't matter. It's not necessary that every time you the armed forces. If you can do something else in a different manner, do it. But what are our targets? What are we going to achieve? What will be the political outcomes? We should see through the whole story. And which suits our environment. Now people are going berserk. Oh, can you lift Yunus? What will you do getting that old fellow? It's a headache for us. Let him go inside and die there only. Okay, we did. What we had to do, we did. We pulled Hasina out. Right? So let's not firstly say that we can't do it. We can do it. But can we do it better? I think we need to. I think we need to have a change of thinking. It's not just integrated commands. Integrated theater command, I think we have gone past the sell-by date. Right? What you need is highest level of politico-military thinking. In this case, in our case, both at the political level and the military level, we lack it. People will get offended, but that's okay. I'm being provocative about the whole affair. And then people start thinking, let them justify, and then suddenly find, oh, nahi, yaar, ye nahi hota. Something will come out of it. Yeah, I'm sorry for this long-winded thing. Back to you.
General Shankar, you kind of let that question go outside the off-stump. That's all right. Let's go to the next panelist. General Shukla, politico-military fusion. The interesting thing that happened in this operation was that the decision making was kept out from what is called as Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight consists of very prominent senators from both sides of the aisle. And this is something equivalent of what India would say, you did not take us into confidence before you did Balakot, vagera vagera, proof kahan hai, vagera vagera. So Trump has taken that step. So would you say that is also politico-military fusion, because they were afraid that if the Gang of Eight gets to know about this, then there could be leaks and that there could be an out for. They just don't want to take a chance. They just did not want to take a chance. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, so absolutely. See, there are a number of issues, some of which General Shankar raised, some others I would like to add. That the whole argument is like this. Where does India want to place the instrument of force in its strategic calculus? That's the first point. Is it central to the attainment of our strategic objectives? If it is, how must this manifest? Now, here there is a military truism which General Sundarji would recall very often. He would say that my business is to create capabilities. So capabilities are capacities, equipment plus forces. So you get equipment, you have the forces to execute. He said, my job is to create capabilities because capabilities take generations to create, intentions change overnight. So the point that General Shankar was making, that what will we do with capabilities? We don't need to get Yunus out. I'm saying this, that you never know when you may need to get Yunus out. So create the capabilities. Getting Yunus out or not is a political decision. Just 7-8 years back, at the highest levels in Delhi, this word started going around कि भाई लड़ाई नहीं होगी. किस basis पे लड़ाई नहीं होगी? Now, these are the conclusions which we come to. So लड़ाई नहीं होगी, so the bureaucrats take the cue कि लड़ाई नहीं होगी तो defense budget की क्या जरूरत है, फिर capabilities की क्या जरूरत है. So this kind of thing in mature, powerful countries should not happen. Armed forces capacities are a continuum. So this is the first thing. I'm for saying create deterrence, create. उनका इस्तेमाल जो है वो political decision होगा, and that political decision will be taken in accord with all kinds of issues, geopolitics, this, that. I'm not saying that every time be gung-ho, but have the capabilities. In that capability structure, the dialogue should be between two men, the Prime Minister and the Chief of Defence Staff. You said keep the 8 out. I'm saying keep most out, because that is where the whole problem comes. And that really, in a good system, something which Indira Gandhi developed with Manekshaw in 71. It was a respect which grew from the days of his commanding 4 Corps to that. That is politico-military congruence, where the politician knows what he wants, the military tells him honestly, this is what I can do and this is what I cannot. So these are the structures that we need to build. And in building those structures, the political direction should be given, and then you work backwards. So I'm just saying hypothetically, if it is to take Hafiz Saeed out, if Israel can do it, US can do it, can India do it? Now, when you start doing it, you will realize that I cannot do this because I don't have space capacities. I cannot do this because I don't have cyber. So I need this. And the politician must say, this is my objective. You need it. You will get it in a month. This is exactly what Trump has done. And the buzzwords have changed over the last 4-5 months. It's no longer, ki karenge, capacity, our time lagta hai. He has said create lethal war-winning capacities, lethality. That has become the buzzword. I don't want to know what will happen 2 years later. I want to know what will happen day after, when I have to take out Maduro. And we have seen those good things happening. Look at a thing called the Iron Dome. He has told the military, $3 trillion, so be it. I will get it for you. Now, I don't know what the fakery is. He claims he's got $18 trillion through tariffs. So $3 trillion to the Iron Dome. I don't know, but he's giving those capacities. And he says, don't tell me 2035. I want the first set of capacities by 2028. Now, this lethality, this urgency, when he talked of rebuilding the military, he first spoke in his first term. Things couldn't happen because of competing bureaucracies and these 8 gentlemen that you're pointing out to. Now, these are the issues that we, need to be also sorted out in the Indian context, because we are very nearly there. हमारे यहाँ तो प्रॉब्लम ये है कि many people say भाई power projection की जरूरत ही नहीं है. अरे power projection is not jackbooting around the world. Power projection is building technological capacities to be used when the political leadership so directs. So in that sense, we need to change in very many ways. Let's take this argument of theater commands. My problem is not theater commands per se. Tomorrow, if the Chief of Defence Staff, whoever is, if he is given the direction, get Hafiz Saeed. Or at some point, if we feel DGI size, the guy is to be put up, get him. Then we should not come up with a series of excuses. कि सर ये नहीं है, वो नहीं है, वो नहीं है. अगर आप बिना थिएटर कमांड के कर सकते हो, कर दो. और अगर थिएटर कमांड की जरूरत है तो उसे कल बना दो. It cannot be when the operation comes, you pull out a piece of paper and say, sir, I cannot do this because of these reasons. Now, this is how the politico-military congruence must flow. General Hasnain has been suggesting for a long time that we need a national level war game. In the first instance, between people in government and experts from outside who tell the top political leadership that these are the issues that need to be addressed, something of the conversation that we are having. Then those outside government have to be put out. And the Prime Minister has to sit with the CDS primarily to say this, how this will be done. हमारे यहाँ tragedy क्या है that, I mean, we are quoting a piece of paper to say that the CDS has no operational role. If the CDS has not operational role, why did we create him? For what? The CDS has an operational role. He is the man who's going to execute it. So, I mean, so the whole point in India is that we are poised for so much, but it is these small things which, are coming in our way. And the last point I would like to make, that today there is the euphoria of Venezuela going right. Look at all the operations of the Americans which have been disasters in the past. Numerous. तो ये जो है, ये पहाड़ एक बार में नहीं चढ़ा जाता है. There will be multiple failures when you build militaries of this kind. But if you seriously believe in militaries as a sacred instrument, they will, deliver when you need them most. This is America's moment today. It could be China's moment tomorrow. I mean, China is building capacities. It doesn't have that kind of stuff. But were they to invest in that, it could be their moment. It could be India's moment if we suddenly start getting everything right. But all I'm saying is that what we need is real world capacities. In geopolitics, don't fib. In military stuff, don't, speak lies, half truths, because the realities are grim. So whatever matters, if theater commands are required, form them. If you can do them without them, please do it without them. If space needs to be combatized, do it. Don't duck around the argument. So it is these honest conversations which need to happen. And the last point I'd like to make, we keep talking of the soft power of the military. The Indian military is a fabulous instrument of men. It just needs these capacities, these capabilities, and it will do you great service.
Thank you so much, sir. General Harimohan Iyer, if you could unmute yourself and then come in, sir.
Yeah, I think it's already unmuted. I wanted to use the words which General Shukla has used. We have the most, I guess, the battle-hardened, fabulous military. But I also agree that political clarity is lacking. General Shankar talked about politico-military fusion. Till the time you have a political clarity, the military cannot be fused. All these whiles, all of us have been in service. We were waiting for that arms directive to come to, make our so-called operational plans. And that arms directive will be so, firstly, I don't know who used to make it. Mr. Shukla knows better because I think in the MO directorate, he was the custodian of that arms directive. But it must be getting generated from his desk. But by and large, that arms directive will be so beautifully balanced that, it could never translate itself into capacities. And at the end of it, we were very happy to say that what we have is good enough and we are hunky-dory and everything is going fine. So politico-military fusion, in my mind, is more important than theatre commands. You may end up creating theatre command, but if you don't give them political clarity, there will be another set of organizations with no directions. And that is something which America has been doing very well. Whether it is this one, Obama, or even George Bush, there were very clear directions. Their Department of Defense actually is a very professional organization. I can't say the same for our Ministry of Defense. We suddenly get a secretary from Ministry of Fertilizers and he becomes Secretary of Defense. And he takes the first 2 years of his tenure learning what is defense all about. And that is the irony of all things. And we have all experienced, all three of us have experienced such cases in our lives. So that is one thing which needs to come out. And second thing I would like to flag, though we are giving America a lot of kudos for this fantastic operation, they could do it with Venezuela. I don't think they could have done it with anybody else. I don't think they'll even dare to do it with Cuba even today. Like General Shankar says, Cuba might be after 2 years. I have my doubts, sir, because they have burned their hands once. So they will, वो कहते हैं ना दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता है, तो वो कोई भी president will have to think 10 times before stepping onto the Cuban line. He keeps sitting in Guantanamo Bay thinking that Cuba is my next. You have to look at three very important aspects when you look at this kind of an operation, which I look at myself. You need to have an opportunity. Here there was an opportunity. January 1st, when everybody is partying, it was a kind of a day when such an operation was never expected. Surprise was actually at the highest. You put an armada of four aircraft carriers, block all their, do a naval blockade, put all kind of equipment all around Venezuela and do nothing for 3 months. You generally telling the people that I don't have the guts to go in. But what they were doing in the backside was they were training this very clear operation. And this wouldn't have happened overnight. They must have trained for at least 30, 40, 50 days. And if you see, General Shankar mentioned 0 Dark 30. If you look at the way they trained for that Osama operation with real life, build-ups, mock-ups, they would have done very similarly here. And they struck on a night when nothing was, possibly alert at that stage. And the last thing is messaging. So this is one area where they have taken the Chinese out. When I look at China, their crude requirement is on the eastern coast. And Venezuela was the most well-designed source, because through Panama Canal, they could just ship it across the Atlantic and take it to the eastern coast fastest. They were not stuck in that Indian Ocean and, all that sea lanes of communication which they had to translate. So what did Trump do? He first shut down Panama Canal, took over that, and now he shut off Venezuela. So he literally thrown the Chinese out of Western Hemisphere. Now China will be totally dependent on Nigerian oil and Russian oil, which in the transit of which is a huge problem for him. It plays for us good for us because all their oil has to go through the famous sea lines of communication which goes through those Malacca and Sunda states. So if tomorrow we have to get into a conflict with them, we can throttle them. So it works well for us, and it's in the larger sense something which the US has done good for the Indian cause. Control of heavy crude, I totally agree. He doesn't need that heavy crude right now. What he will basically do is he'll possibly try and make the oil more attractive out of US. He's trying to counterbalance what Russia and China are doing. So he's playing that game of crude. And, the first thing he said on assuming office was drill, baby, drill. So it was very clear in his mind that he's going to look at oil as the way he has to take his things forward. Taiwan, I totally agree. Taiwan is not an easy nut to crack, and definitely not for China, because it is not just an inserted operation like this. It will require very deliberate operation, and China will think 10 times, because if it fails, that's the end of their so-called military supremacy. So that is, I also agree with it that Taiwan is not going to be a lead here. But one thing we must understand, that even Russia tried the same thing with Ukraine. When they did Crimea in 2014, the operations were over in 72 hours. They took out the eastern part of both Luhansk and Donetsk in 2015-16. Again, the operations happened in double quick time. But they tried the same thing in 2020, and they are still fighting now. So nations get prepared once they are given an opportunity. And I guess Ukraine, with the help of the Western states, has managed to counter whatever superiority Russia had. And I guess Russia has calculated wrongly when they looked at what they could do in Ukraine. In fact, they had to pull back from a very audacious operation they did on the first day. I am of a total thing that political clarity is the base figure. If you want to be a regional or a superpower, then your military needs to have very clear political clarity. And it needs to, though General Shukla says, sirf CDS or Prime Minister, I say, the entire political body should come in. Because when it comes to nation, you should put your individual political goals aside. And it's high time that the CCS, we have to change the way we rotate this. Otherwise, when you look at it, whenever an incident happens, then the CCS meets. These are things which have been happening for the last 50 years. There's no change. And it gives the person on the other side enough time to prepare himself. And that was very evident in the way Op Sindoor opened out. Very evident in the way Balakot had to happen. So we have to do little change in the way political clarity is given. Possibly some degree of decentralization also has to happen. And like General Raj Shukla says, you can't go around with the statement that ladai nahi hogi. If ladai nahi hogi becomes the base figure, then the armies cannot be prepared for such audacious operations. To expect armies to execute such operations, you have to give them enough space and leeway, both in terms of time, training, and equipment. And don't expect them, and I'm sure Indian Army can do 10 times better jobs. Like I said, I have seen our special forces operating, and they are tremendously capable. There's no doubt about it. And it's just not just 3 battalions, we got about 10 special forces battalion now. And with the coming in of these new light commando battalion, it is only improving their capabilities. So we are quite capable of handling it, and getting out a guy like Yunus is not a problem. We took out Sheikh Hasina in the midst of chaos in Bangladesh. So we are quite capable of doing these kind of operations in our neighborhood, but there needs to be very clear political clarity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.